Hey, my friends, I hope you are having a great 2018. Can you believe it's February already? I can't. And speaking of February, there's like a snowstorm happening in Michigan where we live, but I'm not in Michigan. I'm in San Diego. I got my wife with me. Ashley, what's up?
Nothing much. I'm having a great time in San Diego.
Yeah, San Diego is really, really cool. And you know, we were just talking about this before I turned on the mic. It's really hard to think really big when you live in a small town. I mean, at least for me it is. And we live in a bubble. And so let's say that you're staying up all night working on your computer, building your website, or searching about SEO, or going through a course. It's really hard to really accurately understand how big the market is and to accurately understand what the potential of your company is. When you don't have money for groceries next week, or you're stressed on some short-term thing, it has an effect on your brain you can't see. And this just reminded me coming here, the amount of wealth in this country, the amount of opportunity is so big. What are your thoughts, Ash?
Well, you just look at the harbor here, because the hotel's right on the harbor, and there is just thousands and thousands of sailboats. Those thousands of sailboats have owners who are doing big things. And so if they're doing big things, why can't we do big things?
Yeah, and it's not even about the boat. Like, I know you guys that listen to this know my heart, and it's not about materialism or any of that stuff, but it's still an indicator of the situation. And the situation, in reality, is that the market is enormous. The amount of cash and money and wealth in this country is enormous. Sometimes it's hard to see it that way when you yourself are broke temporarily, but just make sure that you understand the difference between being poor and being broke. If you have a poverty mindset, if you really believe there's not enough opportunity, you can't get those extra customers you need to hit the goal, you're not sure if your plan will work, and you're constantly struggling mentally to just believe, then maybe you should take a trip to a place like this, because I promise you, there are lots of people in the world significantly dumber than you who's listening to this right now who've achieved crazy, huge things. And it's not just about raw talent or luck or any of that. It's about believing it's possible and then going and taking it, whatever that means for you. If you need the business a certain size with a certain amount of free cash flow for you to do whatever, or to build a church, or to buy a jet ski, you can have what you want. And yes, there's work and pain and all that, but that's been my biggest reminder so far. We're having fun. We're having like a little date weekend with our baby Judah, who's 4 months old. We miss our kids, but we're having a good time, aren't we?
Yes, we're having a blast. And I really think that we just recorded the podcast, and it is going to be so amazing. There's so many great nuggets. I was loving every minute of it.
Yeah, and so what we're doing right here is I'm setting you up. So we're at this private business conference in San Diego, and I'm speaking at it tomorrow. But today, what I did is I did a live podcast in front of a group of like 70 people, and they're all little service company owners from all over the country. And it was really, really cool. It was kind of weird. So when you're listening to this, I'm standing up at a table with our podcasting mic, and I have two people standing next to me. On my left-hand side, I have Rohan. How did he say his last name? I'm going to mess it up.
Oh, gosh.
Rohan, it's not Gilkes, it's like Gilkes or something. If you're in the maid service world, you know him. He's a big deal. He's super, super sweet guy, super smart. He has a multi-million-dollar maid service. He has other seven-figure businesses. He has a software company called Launch 27. He's doing like some sort of Airbnb-type startup called Inclusive. I don't know a lot about that, but he's just a smart guy, and he talks, and I interview him. And I also interviewed Jonathan Potoshnik, who's been on the podcast before. He has a lawn care business, but it's probably not what you're thinking in your head when you think of someone with a lawn care business. He has like 80 crews. They do like 10 million plus in revenue. So next time you see a kid mowing the lawn making $50, imagine having 82-person crews with trailer. Like, it's a mega operation, and it's not like it's been around 40 years. It's been around like 10 years or something like that, or less. And it's just amazing. So they both have really, really good insight on scale, but they also, I got them to open up about the pain in their life and about some of the struggles they've had and the things that they've learned along the way. I think they're going to enjoy it. You think they are, Ash?
Oh, I beyond think that you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And a shout out to Martha Woodward from Quality Driven Software, who put on this event in San Diego. It's been really, really cool. Martha's sweet. She's got an amazing product too. If you want to check that out, go to qualitydriven.com quality-driven.com, I think, or just Google quality-driven software. Anywho, without further ado, here is my live podcast interview from San Diego. All right, so now to start off with, I have to do my cheesy podcast intro, which will make no sense while y'all stare at me, but I have to do it anyway, right? So, hey everybody, Josh here. Welcome to the Quick Talk Podcast. I am in San Diego. Actually, I think it's San Diego, but it's more fun to say San Diego. I'm happy that you're with me. This is a special episode of the podcast. I'm joined by Rohan and Jonathan. They are two service industry titans. They probably hate that I said that, but we're at a live small business conference hosted by Martha Woodward, and there are, 70 people staring at me as I record this podcast. Can you guys cheer something for the podcast? And this is weird, I'm not going to lie, but it's going to be valuable and interesting and fun. And I come here to have fun, right? I came to San Diego with my wife. Jonathan, did you bring your wife, right?
Tiffany.
That's awesome. And Rohan?
I came by myself.
He came by himself because he's a free man. He's an entrepreneur. He can do whatever he wants. And that's awesome. So I have some questions for Jonathan. If you've probably heard, they've heard you on my show before, so I'll do you second.
Okay.
I really want to dig in to the mysterious Rohan. Is it Gilkes? Gilkes. I was so not even close to that. I'm sorry. Can you tell us a little bit of your backstory, kind of the down and dirty of where you started, where you are, and kind of some of the stuff that happened in the middle?
Oh yeah. So I started, I guess, straight out of college. I graduated with a degree in accounting, and
very exciting.
Yeah, I know, right? I grew up in Barbados, so I'll start there. I grew up in Barbados. I came to the U.S. for school, and for some reason I felt like I was good at math, and I wanted to become an accountant. And from day 2, I realized that this was not what I wanted to do. And it took me another 10 years to rescue myself from a corporate job. At about year 5, I started learning everything I could learn about building a business online. I started doing affiliate marketing with eBay and Amazon and all this weird stuff, building blogs, dating sites, finding everything I could do to try to find a way to rescue myself. And one thing that I found was local services. I had a lady that used to clean my home at the time, and she approached me about a partnership. And I was like, yeah, I could probably build a website and use the skills that I had developed building e-commerce businesses and apply those skills to a local service business, and let's see what happens. And I posted the site, we got a job on the first day. And I was like, man, maybe I could probably make an additional $2,000 a month or something. And I did probably $2,000 in the next 2 weeks. Wow. And I was like, man, this is a business. So everything started with me just trying to apply my e-commerce background, bring it to local services, and started Maize and Black, and then moved into software, and here we are.
Well, it's funny because so many businesses are birthed out of some sort of pain, right? Mm-hmm. I had a corporate job. I worked for JP Morgan Chase, and I had the safe and secure job, and I left it to start squeegeeing windows, and that's why my mom didn't talk to me for a week, because I was ruining my life. But when I wear that tie, I literally hate the tie I have on now, I wanted to crawl out of my skin. I can totally relate to that. I think a lot of people here and listening can relate. Now over to Mr. Jonathan Potoshnik, the lawn care legend. Yeah. Give us a background.
I just to sort of keep it quick. I started out in lawn care as a 14-year-old kid. My mom drove me in. We lived in the country. She drove me into town, and I went and put door hangers out, and ended up with a bunch of yards, and then ended up with a couple employees in high school, and it changed my whole life. Figured out that you could make money in life because I'd never seen such an example, and then I started reading business magazines. Got interested in business, got a degree in computer information systems, and I decided I just wanted to do software for the rest of my life. And my first software company didn't quite go so well. We were trying to build something way too complicated for the technology that existed at the time, and so I've done that. That happened to lead me into becoming a partner in a commercial cleaning company where we would clean movie theaters in 22 states. And then through that business, I accidentally ended up in the lawn care business, which I never thought I'd get back into, nor did I care to get back into it. That was around 2005. So now I had this lawn care thing that was an absolute miserable, horrible experience that made me no money and made me really tired while I did all kinds of other things. Figured out how to fix that. reinvented it and the entire business model around it, and I own that today with the president and management team and that runs it, and parlayed that into another software company that John, who's my business partner, and I we were partners in for a while, and then finally Service Autopilot was a concept that we had talked about for some time. We didn't really know what it looked like. We finally got to it and really kind of launched in 2010.
Well, if there's one thing that's true about having a business is it's really easy, you know? It's just a dream. And I know both of you were born with silver spoons in your mouth, and you were given, you know, everything was easy for you, right? So if we could, I want to talk about pain for a second, because people relate to pain and suffering because maybe someone listening to this, their business isn't working at all. You have like 50 crews or something on your lawn.
70 or 80.
70. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No.
That's so insulting. No, it's big, but some people, theirs will be big someday if they don't quit. If they can learn and apply systems and concepts and develop leadership skills and all that. But maybe today, it's really crappy. And so it's really helpful when they hear stories about, for Rohan, when it was really crappy and it was hard and you wanted to stop, or maybe for you. So could you tell us each, we'll start with you, Rohan, something that happened in your entrepreneurial journey that was hard, any kind of pain?
Yeah, so I feel like the entire thing was painful. It was really, really difficult. I went through a point where, you know, I had to make this transition between having a full-time job. Like, I really like that period of my life because it was really, really difficult, and it's good to look back on that now. And I got laid off from my job. So I spent like 1 year trying to find another job. And during that year, I started working on the business. So the money that I was making from that business had to really, like, you know, pay the bills. And so I had to make it work somehow.
Stuff got real.
Yeah, it was real. It was real. I had to figure it out. So in building my business, like my cleaning service business, going through the troubles of trying to figure out AdWords and putting costs into marketing, not really sure if you're going to get it back in time to pay the mortgage, is like nerve-wracking. But I feel like if you're able to kind of solve that customer acquisition problem, like how do you get more customers, and spend like 90% of your time on that, especially in the beginning, you can do well. I find that a lot of people that I talk to now, they're spending 90% of their time on operations. And for me, I just wanted to grow. I had no choice but to grow. And as I build businesses now, I really think about that. 90% of my time on marketing and customer acquisition. And then as I get better, I can then look at operations and procedures and processes and fixing those things that have to be fixed as you grow. And that's kind of how I got myself out of that slump, I guess.
That is like epically valuable. I want you to tell your pain story too, if you have some. I'm sure you do.
I got like 20.
But could you comment on what he said first? Because he was talking about how he focuses primarily, I call it staying in your lane. Yeah. You know, we talked last night at dinner about the entrepreneurial scorecard and, you know, where we're investing our time. And I work with tons of businesses. I've had over 1,000 individual calls with small businesses, and one of the biggest problems is that they're technicians, and they like to go and look at equipment on the internet. They don't understand how to sell and how to convert in their number. What are your thoughts on that?
And I think it's even bigger than that. I originally started, I mean, bigger as in, I 100% agree with everything he just said, but I think there's another symptom that leads us to that. So I originally started learning marketing. I call him my mentor, even though I didn't know him. It was this guy named Dane Kennedy. And I went to a bunch of Dane Kennedy conferences years ago, and he used to always have this banner hanging up at his conferences that said, "Success is created in a messy kitchen." And I think that's one of the most important things that we have to remember as we're building our companies, that not only are we, in some cases, technicians trying to, and maybe we're wired where we want to get operations right, but the thing that I think is even a bigger symptom of this problem is, for many of us, I'm sure you guys were the same way. I didn't even know how to tell you what marketing meant at one point in my life. I didn't know what marketing was versus sales. I didn't understand some of these terms. And so when you don't know what to do next, or you don't know something, what do? Well, you don't just sit around and watch TV. You keep yourself busy. You try to find something to do. So I think for many of us, we might gravitate towards, hey, I could work on operations, or I could work a little bit more in the field, or I could go do this thing, and it makes us feel like we're making progress. Reality, we're not. And that, to me, is a massive watch out. We find things to do that are forms of procrastination. Or one last thing, and I remember when I ended up with this lawn care business that I did not want to be back in, And I didn't know how to grow this thing, so the only thing I could do was walk the streets and get commercial properties, which was the most miserable thing I had ever done, like walking in and asking for business. And I remember I'd pull my truck up to these warehouses and I'd sit in my truck, and my brain would think of everything that I could possibly go do other than this thing, go sell. I would invent things. Oh, well, we need to fix this problem. I better call this guy or whatever. And I feel like we create forms of procrastination because we don't want to do stuff or we're scared to do it. We tell ourselves this great story about, why we'll do that thing later. So
I want to drop my mic right now, but it will break. So and
I tell you that from experience many times.
Me too. I confused for many years being busy with being productive, and they're not the same thing. They're completely different things. And to scale a company, at least to the level you guys are, or even just getting it to $1 million or something, requires you to stay in your lane. Sales marketing, that was awesome. Great stuff.
You said just getting it to $1 million. I'll tell you, I don't know how it is for everybody else, but I think getting to the first $1 million was almost the hardest part of the business.
Yeah.
It was really hard. Was it? Did you?
Oh yeah, it was super tough. Yeah. The second one is easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think a lot of it's mental too. But I don't want to skip your pain story, but we can talk about self-limiting beliefs and how real those are in a few minutes. But tell us one of the hardest times you had when maybe you kind of even alluded to it when you're talking about selling and how hard that was. Did anything horrible happen? How'd you come out of it? What do you got?
I'll stick with that one then. Since there's several, so it's hard to. I'll go down that road. So I alluded to the lawn care business. So I end up with this lawn care business, and what happened is we bought this. I think I might have told this story to you before. We ended up buying this little lawn care business from this older gentleman that was mowing lawns on a riding lawnmower. And that was his business, and he was basically done. And so we paid $7,000 for $50,000 in revenue. And so they were commercial properties. They were just warehouses. I didn't know my grass, my bushes. I didn't know any of these things, even though I mowed lawns as a high school kid. So what I did, and I've told this before, so some of you might have heard this, but I think it's one of the best business lessons of my entire life. So what I did is I just went out and I started knocking on doors, walking into businesses to get work. And I also started collecting all the door hangers on my home, the postcards that came in. I Googled everybody's lawn care company. I looked at what everybody sold. So what services do they sell? How do they price? How do they market? What do they say? And tell you everybody says satisfaction guaranteed. Like you'll just see everybody says the same things. I copied all of it because I didn't know what to do. So I just copied what everybody else was doing in the market. And as a result, I ended up with a business just like most everyone else is in the market. That was very difficult, tiring, exhausting, frustrating, and there was very little money to be had. And so it was just absolutely terrible because I was programming, consulting till 3 o'clock and programming every night till 3 o'clock in the morning, traveling for the cleaning company and building this lawn care company and married with 2 little kids. And I thought, this isn't going to be a life that is overly awesome. And I'm not going to have an overly awesome marriage, and I'm not going to know my kids, and none of my businesses are going to be great. It just was not going to work.
I don't think people can relate to that.
Yeah.
Can you tell a different story?
I think that's why
you got any other stories?
Yeah. And so one of the best things ever, to finish this out, a business friend, partner said, well, why do you have to do it that way then? He was referring to my business. Well, why does it have to be done that way? And that's the only thing I remember him saying. I'm sure there was more to it. And that sparked something in my brain where I kind of thought to myself, I don't really care if this business burns down. I don't want to harm the employees. I didn't mean that in a mean way. Like I don't want to harm the employees or the clients. But if my business went away and we just closed it, that would be better for my life. And from that place of confidence, meaning that confidence came from having some backup income. I literally let everyone on the team go except 3 people, let all the clients go in the nicest of ways for all of them, except for the very best clients. And overnight, I had a very interesting business, and that gave me confidence to reinvent the entire business model, and it changed my entire way of looking at business from that point forward.
That's awesome.
And I think so many of us live in the trap of our business, in the trap of what we see our friends and our colleagues and other businesses that we're competing against doing, and we say, well, that must be how I have to do it. And the reality is, the beauty of getting to wake up every day and do what we get to do is we get to create it. We don't have to go to the confines of somebody else's thing and work inside their little model and their process. We get to create that process and create the life we want. And he's done, from what I've heard, a masterful job of that. Like being able to be where you want to be and do all. He's created something that works around his life. So shouldn't we do the same while at the same time taking super awesome care of our teams, taking great care of our clients? And it can all be done And I think that's the thing we have to ask ourselves every day and challenge ourselves. Is there a different way to do this?
The rules, I forget who said the quote, maybe you guys know, but it's like everything that is a certain way in the world is the way that it is because some dude just said that.
Steve Jobs.
Yeah, Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Classic Steve Jobs. But like we drive on a certain side of the road, there's red, green, yellow lights, there's infrastructure, there's rules, there's societal norms, and with our business, and I was talking to, who was I talking to about how the industries have siloed information, which is really cool when like a maid service can hear from a lawn care person or vice versa, because there's different tactics and mindset and different ways of doing things in these different service industries, but we kind of stay in our bubble. And that guy kind of popped your bubble, it sounded like. He's like, you know what, you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want.
Yep.
There's no rules. It's all an illusion. But I am going to ask you guys your top 2 mistakes you've made along the way. So I'll let you, I'm going to just prepping you to get your brains ready for that. But an easier question is, what is the best advice, Rohan, you would give to a new greenhorn window cleaner? I mean, they think they know it all. They actually know nothing, but they're excited and they have lots of potential. What would you say to them?
So I would start with kind of like a story, because this is something that, I talk to many entrepreneurs daily, probably talk to thousands over the last 2 or 3 years. And there's this recurring thing that I want to insert, even if it doesn't work perfectly for this question. But picture yourself, has anyone here watched the Grammys recently?
Yeah.
You watched it?
I didn't see it.
You didn't see it? Okay.
I've seen it before.
Yeah,
just not this year.
So if you watch the Grammys, there's this big red carpet, and people come through, and they're dressed really, really nicely. It's a very important night. So imagine if you're going to the Grammys, you want to look really, really, really nice. So you may meet some cool people that you can network with, and really take your business to the next level based on some interaction you may have on that night. So you're gonna, have 2 options around how you look. You're either going to hire a designer for your clothing, or you're going to go out and shop at some place really, really cool to find the best dress possible or the best suit possible to wear to the Grammys. Now, what we do with our businesses instead, we sometimes tell ourselves that, we're going to make the clothes ourselves. We're gonna, we've never made clothes, that we don't have any experience in designing clothes, but we're gonna borrow our friend's sewing machine, and we're gonna go and we're gonna fix it out, and we're gonna make it ourselves.
So true.
But the outcome of that is usually not very good. So as we're thinking about creating our websites and creating what our launch looks like, and the red carpet that we roll out to our customers, we want that to be high quality as well. So the advice I would give a new person is to really spend some time thinking about that presentation. And that presentation happens primarily on your homepage of your website. And there's your about page and those other pages, but that decision on if this person is going to do business with you or not happens on your homepage. So spend as much time as possible and invest some money into making sure that your homepage is high quality, and it looks like, what would your homepage look like if Google or Apple had designed it, versus let me design something that looks like my competitor's homepage. And if you're able to do that, you're going to set yourself up to be successful.
That is good advice. And I hear that the internet's getting popular. I've heard it's getting popular, and customers are even possibly going on there now, and all kinds of stuff's happening on the web. No, I'm just kidding. That's really good advice.
That was a rambling story.
It wasn't rambling. It was on point. No, we're super cheap.
Yeah. I thought I hadn't heard that story before. So to piggyback on what he said, I have this new thing I've been thinking about it quite a bit. And I think half the game of business and building your business when you first get started is moving fast enough where you don't get stuck and hit this place of burnout. Sort of grind into the ground, and then the company never goes anywhere. Mm-hmm. I've been talking about this and thinking about it more. So I would add everything he said, plus doing what he said buys you speed. So if you go design your own dress or make your own thing, that's going to just slow you down. Mm-hmm. And every time you slow yourself down, you're dragging out the process of getting to where you need to go to have enough money to hire people to take things off your plate. And if you keep too many things on your plate for too long, and especially the things you don't love, you kind of burn out, you grind down, and maybe it manifests itself not as going out of business, but it manifests itself as you've got this thing that never became what you thought it could become, never became what it should have became because you're just tired. And therefore you can't serve the client like you really originally intended to serve the client. And there's just all these little things that manifest. And so I think his analogy is perfect for buying speed as well.
Yeah.
Get there faster.
Yeah,
Save yourself some pain.
You ever heard of cash flow purgatory? It's like, it's easy to get a little bit of initial momentum, maybe friends, family, you're excited, you're killing it, and you're going, and then at some point, every industry is a little different. In the industries I work with, it's like the $300,000 to $500,000 range.
Yeah, okay,
yeah, I call it cash flow.
Yeah.
But people get stuck in there, and there's not enough resources to build like actual middle management and stuff. But you need it, and you're overwhelmed and all that. But yeah, you're right, momentum. And yeah, that's awesome. Because you don't want to be stressed out and go home and yell at your dog.
Yeah.
That's not why we started our business. I love dogs. Okay, so here's a really good question that I'm going to let you guys prep about. I'm going to ask you what you would tell your younger self if you could go back in time. But before we do that way you can process that. But if you remember, I was going to ask you your top 2 mistakes that you made along your journey. So let's go there. What are the 2 cataclysmically dumbest things you've done on your entrepreneurial journey?
Man, there's a long list to choose from. So one of the things, and this is one that may even seem weird as well, but so one thing that I've figured out now is as I'm trying to build my business, I want to think about how can I be as efficient as possible with every part of the business. Like, what's the most efficient solution? And one thing as I was building was figuring out how to take money, like how to get paid. So I could either get credit cards, cash, or checks. And I did that for the first year and a half, maybe 2 years of business. And it was insanity. I had some of my employees being robbed because they had cash on them and checks on them, like car windows busted, lost checks, bounced checks, all these issues. And I know I'm not the only person that's gone through some of these issues with getting paid. And then I told myself, if I stopped and just took credit cards, all these people that would rather pay with cash or checks are going to leave. And I'm never going to be able to really figure this out. But I said, you know what, I'm going to do it anyhow. So I got rid of cash and checks, credit card only, and the business grew. I was able to completely streamline this process of getting paid without losing a single penny to any of the things that I had lost money to before. I was losing thousands of dollars per month around these issues. So the dumbest thing to answer your question was just doing that for almost 2 years and completely suffering and thinking that there's no way I could make a change, and I stuck with it for way too long. And now I would just credit card only.
That's interesting. I was thinking that before we sold our company, but I was too chicken to do it. I was honestly thinking the same thing.
I was thinking to do it too for a long time.
It's normal. Actually, a lot of the people I network with are just, it's how it is. It just gets built in for the job. But anyway, what is your first of your top 2 biggest mistakes?
And I'm going to preface what I'm about to say because I've just answered this question recently. The dilemma with this kind of questioning and thinking is all these things are what got us here. And that's why we're standing here. And so you take certain parts of this stuff out of your life, what kind of person might you be? It's hard to know. I mean, we might be different people. This is how we got here. It's part of the story. So I don't really feel like I have any regrets. I have frustrations. I wish I had done things different, but what might have changed? So, however, with that being said, partners. Picking the wrong business partners. That'll take you down a bad road. So I'll just leave it at that,
Yeah. Wow, that's a whole Pandora's box. Well, I always say that having a business partner is like being married, right? It's a marriage. And a marriage is like when you glue 2 pieces of paper together. And if you try to separate those after the fact, it doesn't work very well. Things get shredded apart, right? And to speak to that, people think that a business partner or an investor or getting into debt or whatever will somehow save their day. You ever heard the analogy where a half of a person, they're not really a solid, stable person, but they're looking for a spouse because they need someone to make them happy. And it almost is parallels to business. your business is a total train wreck, and so you need someone to fix it. Well, the person that's joining you thinks that you're going to fix it, and you think that they're going to fix it, and it doesn't work. It's like a half times a half equals 0.25, which is like a reduction. But if you have a whole person who's fulfilled and stable and whatever, and they marry a person who's a 1, you got 2 1s, that's a total rambling thing. But I that's a major issue for a lot of people. And okay, we can talk about maybe a second mistake?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I have one. So when I started out, I was thinking like, I want to build this business where I'm like, I can take over the entire country, right? I mean, the entire country. So I was doing like maybe 200,000 a year in one state. So I started to do the math, like 200,000 a year in one state. If I'm in 10 states, that'll be $2 million. And I started to do this calculation. And I was like, I'm going to go after it. So I opened like 15 landing pages on my website, added 15 different cities, opened 15 different Yelp pages, and I was like, yeah, let me multiply this revenue and go, retire somewhere in the Caribbean or something. But it doesn't work like that. Like, business takes focus. So as I tried to do this, it was like a waste of money. I wasted all these resources, and there was no way that I could put the energy that it took to grow the first state, the first city, and kind of try to like duplicate that energy across 15 other cities. It just does not work. So what I did instead was close those 15 cities that I was trying to build, focus exclusively on my one city, and I was able to 15 exit in that one single city without having to try to run like crazy across 15 different cities. So the takeaway from that for me is just focus. If you're working on this one thing and it's working, you're probably better off doubling down on that thing that works versus trying to insert yourself into something that is new, the new shiny object, which I have that problem.
Nobody here does, though.
Yeah, so that's my thing. Yeah.
That's really good. Follow one course until success. The acronym for focus.
Yeah, write that bad boy out.
That's a good. Yeah.
Kind of messed with my whole thing there because mine is
Stole
exactly
the thunder.
same one. Let me see if I can spin it in a different direction now, because it is exactly the same thing. Maybe one way to look at it would be this. I struggled with this one focus in that I at one point had 4 companies, and that's just too much. Just double down on what's working. I agree. And then maybe another way to think about it as you're growing your thing. And I think about this: you're going to encounter all these individuals that want to do business. If your thing's going well, everybody's going to want to work with you. Everyone wants to be part of this thing. Everybody, it's just what happens. And everybody comes to you as soon as they know that you have money and ability and team and all these other things. They also all want to be in business with you in some way or partner with you if they got an idea to invest in or a million different things. And there's so much opportunity out there, so half the game is saying no to most of these things. And then the other part of it is, I've come to conclude, you don't really have to own the whole pie. So how can you, if you're working with other people, how can you position it so that they win in a major way, and then you don't have kind of a revisionist history of how that relationship happened and look back 2 years later and say, well, I should be getting all that money, or I see this all the time. Us as business owners, we do deals and they're great at first, and then when they're doing really well, we look back and say, well, I'm doing a little bit more in this relationship, so I need more of the money in this partnership. And that moment where we start to get greedy on these deals and we want everything or we want it all, is exactly when all those deals go away, and then nobody benefits in those. And I don't know if that resonates or makes sense, but it's this mindset of, we don't have to make every dollar for ourselves at our company. We can actually partner with other people, and if they win in a major way and they have success financially and in other ways, then we will win too if we structured those deals right. So we don't have to own it all.
Yeah, like the famous Zig Ziglar quote, who doesn't love Zig Ziglar? But, if you help enough people get what they want, you automatically get what you want. Yeah, that's awesome.
But I think that's kind of a focus thing too, because if you think about it, if you're staying focused, that means you can't do all the opportunity. So you need to find people to work with you to carry out, if you want to capitalize on it, to carry out some of the opportunity.
How big of a role does perfectionism play for small businesses that are listening to the podcast or are here in holding their growth back?
Massive. So if anybody knows what Colby is, I'll just tell you the number to look at. If you know what Colby is, it's the 4 numbers. The second number is follow through. if you're really high in that number, you should ask yourself if you're slowing things down to have too much process, too many procedures, too much perfection, too early in the business. So what I've learned about myself, so just think about the second number, because you may not know what Colby is. It's a measure of how you organize things and how you think and how you work, and you need structure, process, procedure, organization. You create that in your life, you create that in your business. We're gonna make this thing a finely tuned machine. That'd be one way to think about it. Well, if that's how you're wired, which is awesome, then in the beginning of your business, you naturally go slower because I need everything to be organized and perfect, and I can't imagine the idea, and none of us want to let down a client, but I can't imagine the idea of making one mistake where one client's going to be disappointed. So when something goes bad, we need a new procedure in the company, we need a new process. All of that goes slow when in the beginning slows everything down when you got to be selling, you got to be marketing, you got to be growing this thing. I felt like he was saying earlier, you got to go. And so if you're that person, it really slows it down. Now I'll tell you, I have a little bit of that in me, but it's a lower number. And so I've learned as the business gets bigger, I have to surround myself with that type of individual. If my thing is that I can get stuff going, I can create the future, the vision, but I need those people on my team around me to hold me accountable and create process and procedure in the company. So you got to know what I was trying to say is you got to know who you are. You're either someone that's really good at that stuff or you're someone that's not. And depending on which, and you'll need that skill, but depending on which phase of the business it's either a watch out in the beginning where you got to really push yourself and live outside your comfort zone, or later when you don't like process and procedure, you have to bring it into the company. You have to trust the people around you to execute the process, and you have to live in their world and accept it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, man, you're crushing it, bro. I think we're trying to get the energy going back.
I think we're like the same person when it comes to that. I'm like at the same end of that scale.
Yeah.
And the way how I think is like, if this thing is perfect, and I'm waiting until it's perfect before I launch, it's too late. I can't launch perfect. I have to launch.
Done is better than perfect.
Yeah, done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
Like launch when it's imperfect and fix along the way. But yes, I then have to bring on people that are going to say, hey, you need to cross this T and dot this I. And so, yeah, absolutely agree with what you're saying. Yeah.
A lot of little businesses over-systemize stuff, and they're just going to change it 462 times anyway. You ever heard the phrase that it's not a problem until it's a problem? Some people identify every potential possible problem, and then their business doesn't grow. So that was really good. Thank you both very much. We're getting on the home stretch here. I want to keep the energy high because this is awesome. So we're going to go to one of our main questions here, which is, what would you tell your younger self if you could go back in time?
That's a good one.
Now we're going to pause to thank our sponsors. Please. No, just kidding. Okay.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Got
Yeah.
it.
What would you tell yourself?
The world is much bigger than we think it is. And what I mean by that is, I grew up in a small world, like in terms of a small mental world. And I don't mean that in any possible negative way to my parents, not even slightly. I just mean that if you think about business and finance and what's possible in your life and the opportunity and the life you could lead, and I don't know if you've ever done this, but do you make trade-offs in your brain? Like, okay, I don't even know what a good analogy would be, but maybe you make trade-offs. Okay, I could have a little bit more stuff, but that means I'm gonna have a little bit less of this, or I'm gonna focus more on my family and my children, so that means my business is gonna have to be a little bit smaller. And so we make all these trade-offs, and I like the question, well, why can't you do it all? Why can't we have it all? And I think that, too, within reason. And so I feel like, growing up, just to use a financial example, I'd never seen anyone that made a lot of money. And I didn't really, I never knew of anybody just made tremendous amounts of money or built big companies or built big teams. And sometimes when you read about bigger companies in the news, it's kind of negative. Like, I wouldn't really want to build that kind of company or treat my team like that or be that kind of person. And so I think the thing that I wish I knew a little bit earlier is just how much opportunity is out there. And that there are people we don't know that are living these unbelievable lives in terms of, and I'm not talking just about money, but money may play a role, but in terms of what they're doing quietly behind the scenes, helping other people, or what they're doing in their personal lives, or what they're doing with their families, while they also have built really interesting businesses. And so I didn't know that, I wasn't exposed to it. I think the internet's made it a little more readily.
Look at the harbor.
Yeah. I mean,
hello.
I grew up in the country.
There's $1 billion of toys behind everybody here. We're looking at the bay.
Yeah. So my recommendation there to just change your way of thinking.
Abundance.
Because until you see what's possible, you don't know what the goalpost is that you could be going after. And even when you see what's possible, the next game is to figure out what you don't need in your life, where you're just getting caught up and moving in a direction because that's the direction the world's moving in. I think that's a huge watch out. But my point here is that if you, the way to expand the thinking, which will get you to the next level in life, is to be doing this stuff. It's to be going to the conferences. A lot, everybody in this room probably does this, but it is to really, we've talked about this, it's got to be one of my favorite statements. You will become the 5 people you hang around. What do you want out of your life? What do you want? And if you're hanging around with people that are not living that life, whatever that is, business, health, family, whatever it is, if you're hanging around with people that don't live what you want to be day in and day out, good luck becoming that person. And so I think it's critical for all of us to go seek out those individuals that are way down the road ahead of us and spend as much time around them and absorb the way they think. And I think that's half the game. And not only does it expand our thinking, it gets our energy level up. And much of what we're doing here is about managing energy, keeping our energies up every day so we show up as the very best version of ourselves to our team and our families and everyone. That is one of the most important components of building something.
That was awesome. So the question was, what would you tell your younger self if you go back in time? And then he's going down the self-limiting belief road, which we'll circle back to too. But what would you say to young Rohan?
Yeah, so young Rohan, don't be afraid of failing. I knew, when I was young, I had to, I grew up in Barbados. I grew up probably in part, I don't like to say I grew up in poverty because it seems like so harsh, but I grew up in poverty. And as I'm thinking about, how I was back then and the types of thoughts that used to go through my mind, I knew that I wanted to do something big and massive, like everybody's dreaming. Like I was always a dreamer. But as I was dreaming, I had this roadblock of how to get from that dream and make it a reality. And the thing that was always in the way was really like being afraid of failing. Like, what if I try this thing and it doesn't work? And then my mom was going to be like, man, you can just go to college, get your accounting degree, become an accountant, just go do that. Mm-hmm. And all my friends would see me losing and struggling. Like, that was really a problem for me. And then as I started to work and actually try something and try to build a business, I started with a dating site like way back. It failed. I then started like an advertising network for blogs. That failed. I started like a local marketing service for like local companies. That failed. And I can go on and on. Like, this could be really long if I kept going. But each time I was failing, I was learning so much. I actually think I ended up learning more from my failures than from the things that worked out. So I was learning, I was getting better and better and better. So to wrap this whole story up, like I would tell myself, hey, every time you fail is going to be a good thing. You're going to be so far advanced than if you had never tried that thing out in the first place. So fail, and then the wins start to become a lot more predictable. And you can kind of see the failures coming from like further in the distance, and make decisions and really kind of improve things and get better. And then the wins, and now people look at me and they say things like, man, like everything you touch turns to gold. I'm like, what are you talking about? I have like this long line of things where I've like completely lost all my money and struggled and had to borrow money from friends and all this stuff. And that may happen again, who knows? But failing is really, really, really important, and you want to like be comfortable with it and to love it and to embrace it and for it to be okay, because it's really like learning and getting better, and when those wins come is like so juicy. So.
What a great answer. Thank you for that. One of my favorite quotes is, everybody sees the wine, but no one sees the crushing of the grapes. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you've had your grapes crushed a little bit. Yeah, so have I. We have, but it's easy to dismiss. Yeah, that's really funny. It's really easy to look at someone who is further ahead than we are. I've been guilty of this before.
We all are.
And you look at them and you just dismiss the 20 years of whatever they did to have what they have. Like we downplay it. Like, oh yeah, they worked hard. Everybody works hard. No. Sometimes there's more to the story and stuff, but That was a great answer. This is really good. Okay, so let's wrap up maybe with mindset. Martha, how are we doing on time? Okay.
Don't we have like 30 more minutes or something?
Yeah, you do, but I mean, they're probably not going to complain if they get it back.
I feel like we want to like leave early so they want more and stuff instead of annoy them and then they're like, right? Okay. So, but mindset is a huge thing. Self-limiting beliefs are real. It sounds like a woo-woo thing. I'm not into woo-woo, but this is real. What's woo-woo? Self-limiting beliefs?
Yes.
You don't think that people have a...
I believe in woo-woo.
Oh, okay. I was saying woo-woo's bad.
Really interesting here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's totally eat lunch and talk about woo-woo. But I guess the point I'm making is that there's a difference between being broke and poor, right? And like not having money, you're broke, and being poor, there's a lot of mental stuff. And I didn't grow up with anything. There's no entrepreneurs in my family. But I'm not going to overplay it and act like I had some horrible life. My parents are awesome. They love me. They worked hard. My dad made $12 an hour. My mom cut hair part-time. And we lived in this fancy neighborhood where the high school kids drove these fancy cars and we couldn't do that and stuff. But there was no entrepreneurial mindset or mentality. It just didn't exist. They were great people. It wasn't there. But then you have other people who grow up in abject poverty and they're abused, or they're taught that money is evil and that having money is evil. You got like all kinds of weird stuff that gets in our head. And then it can stay there your entire life. And even my mom to this day has some weird issues with money and spending, and like it's locked in. It's locked in. But a lot of it's not real. So I'd like to ask both of you, how important is mindset? How has your mindset evolved over the years? What advice could you give people to maybe smash through some of those self-limiting beliefs or mental blocks or whatever?
Yeah, so I think mindset is super important. That's where 90% of stuff happens. I think it's really important as I'm, thinking about starting a business or, going traveling or whatever, to think about what gets me from, waking up in the morning and working on whatever that thing is. So I didn't think of it this way, and this may not work for everybody. So you have two people, and you have a goal of driving from like San Diego to Texas or something. You have like person A. That person is going to sit down and they're going to go on Google. They're going to map out the correct route. They're going to look at the weather. They're going to go and test their tires. They're going to double check the oil. They're going to think of am I going to use Google Play for music along the way, or maybe I'll use Apple Play, and they'll go through this entire calculation of everything that has to be in place before they start to drive. Person B is going to get in the car, turn the ignition, and start driving. And person B, like 100% of the time, I feel like person B is going to get there. They're going to get there probably faster. They're going to be happier. They're going to run out of gas probably, and they'll stop at the gas station and get more gas. Like, it's not a big thing. And they'll get moving forward. So in my life, I want to be as much of person B as possible. I want to take action every single time I have the chance to take action. And I know that I can person A a lot, and things can still work out as well. But a lot of the challenges that you're going to have, you're not going to realize until you hit the highway. You're not going to realize, oh, there's a traffic jam, or there's some problem, or there's a tornado, or whatever. Like, stuff is going to happen along the way. You can't pre-plan for all those things. So you could as well, in my estimation, start driving, and you're going to plan a little bit, but start driving. Start to drive. You're going to get there. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to get in accidents. You're going to have car flats. All these problems are going to happen, and you're going to solve each and every one along the way, and you're going to get there. So that's how I want to be in my life, and that's how I'm trying to be actively. I person A lot of things that I'm working to not do that, and I think it's something that could be helpful for other people to at least consider as they're planning out their journeys.
That's awesome. It reminds me of another one of my favorite quotes. I have way too many, but being an entrepreneur is like jumping off a cliff and building a plane on the way down, right? You ever heard that? That's what it feels like, at least for me. But the good news is that if you don't get the plane assembled and you hit the ground, you don't die. Like, it's okay. It's not that big of a deal, actually. Instead of jumping off a real cliff. But okay, what do you think?
So I think this mindset, it's very similar to what I said earlier. I had alluded to some ways to be thinking about moving forward in the life around reading and surrounding yourself with the right people and mentors and showing up at conferences. I think the dilemma with mindset is I can stand up here and tell you maybe some wise ways to think, but if I'm successful, then I hope that I'm thinking very differently 5 and 10 years from now. I feel like the goal is to continue to evolve the way we think. It's very hard to explain certain things to my kids because they don't have enough perspective yet. I can explain certain things, but they won't get it at their core because they just haven't had enough experience. And so I'll go back to, we don't know how we've been programmed in some way to believe what we believe or feel what we feel or have emotional chemical reactions to certain things in our life. And the only way we expose ourselves to alternative ways of thinking or validation of the way we currently think and operate is to get out there. And even when and I'll use the example of going to events or meeting people or joining programs like coaching or mentorship programs, and I would encourage you to do them in your industry and outside your industries. And the reason I mention this is until you do that stuff, you'll never meet people and you'll never be forced to think in different ways and you'll never be able to force to defend your opinions. I think half of growth is defending what you believe and having to talk to people that disagree with you. I'm talking about every aspect of life. And so the way I think about that is we all will get to some level in our life, and I have this experience often. I will go spend $3,000 to be at an event. And I will say to myself, I don't know if I really learned anything at this event, but I would go back to a $3,000 event all day long because it only takes one or two things. And every time I show up at that type of thing, I'm in some way subconsciously learning new things. I'm having dinners with people and meeting people. I think there's this risk as we grow as business owners, we kind of say, I think I kind of got this. I think I kind of know what to do. I think I kind of have the answers, and then we quit showing up in ways. We quit participating. And I'll end it with two things. It's, again, stuff I've alluded to. I really think half the game of business is about building two skills, two things. Energy, got to keep our energy level up. We are the example to everyone in our life. And that comes from being healthy, it comes from working out, eating right, it comes from reading, it comes from hanging around with the right people, it comes from believing that the world is getting better and the future is bigger. That's all energy stuff, and the other one is confidence. The game of business is solved through bringing awesome team members into our lives and onto our companies to take things off our plate and give us someone to work with that we learn from, and it's fun to work with, and in working together we build something really interesting to serve our clients. Okay, so the only way you ever hire these awesome people, and they get more and more expensive as the business gets bigger, is to have confidence that you will be able to engineer solutions to problems as they appear. We're going to have, that's what we get paid big money for, solving problems. That's really all it is at the end of the day. You're getting paid to solve problems. If you don't have any problems, I don't think you're building anything. So it's just, and so if you think about this, you don't, and I don't go hire people. We don't spend the money on marketing when the economy's down and we're nervous. We don't do all these things we need to do if we don't operate from a place of confidence. And I believe you get confidence either through experience, all the junk that's all happened to everyone in this room, that gives you experience, which gives you confidence that you can solve that problem in the future, or you gain confidence from hanging out with other people that have done that thing before you. And it's the credit card thing. Everybody fights this credit card concept of, I'm afraid to charge credit cards, and he gave a perfect example of how it was transformative. It was exactly one of my top stories as well. And so if you talk to enough people, if you're scared to charge credit cards, but you talk to 20 people that all had success, you can just do it. Like that, it's a way to get confidence without you having to go through the pain.
You can borrow
their wisdom, and you get confidence from seeing maybe people you respect or you like, and hey, they're not crazy, so it's probably true. And then
we're crazy.
So yeah, so
we're all crazy. Everybody in this room is crazy.
So that would be that's how I believe you develop mindset. It's hard to say I need to develop this mindset in this area because we don't know where we're wearing blinders or what we're blind to. So I believe we just have to keep showing up at bigger and bigger things around bigger and bigger people, and our mindset slowly evolves and changes.
Can you say everything you just said again, except be passionate this time? Yeah. I'm just kidding. That was awesome.
Wow.
Anything to add?
I mean,
you don't have to. I'm just wondering if you want to.
No, I like that ending.
That was good, man. It's awesome. Well, for the sake of the podcast listeners, I'd love for you both to briefly explain your current projects, your companies, what it does, what the value prop is. lay it out there so that we can drive traffic to you both have amazing software companies that do totally different things. So feel free, Rohan, maybe explain what Launch 27 does and how people can learn about it.
Yeah, so Launch 27, I started it to really think about customer acquisition first and foremost. Like, how do I get more customers? And so it's really heavily focused on a strong booking form that people can add to their websites that allows you, while you're sleeping, for people to come and book service, pull up their credit card, and see your real-time schedule and be able to book service with you. And then you can go in and manage that service, assign teams, handle the day-to-day operations of your business. And that's what Launch 27 does.
And is this, do you have the web builder, or do they install it as like a widget on their own website?
Yeah, so two ways. One, you can install it as a widget on your website. And two, we also have like some front-end themes, WordPress themes, that people can use if they're starting from zero to build a website very, very quickly and then attach Launch 27.
Okay, and so just to clarify for the podcast listeners, Rohan has this really super sick software called Launch 27. A lot of maid services use it, but any service industry, I believe, can use it or at least get a demo and ask a question. But there's multiple industries using it. It's a widget, it's a button that goes on your website. A call to action says, get an instant book now or get an instant quote, right? And just correct me if I'm wrong, just trying to really visualize this for the podcasters, listeners. They type in, I have 3 rooms and 3 bathrooms, and it's like it's generating a real-time price that they can see. And the person at 2 a.m. is really happy about that because they don't want to talk to a human. They just want to book and buy their stuff, right? And so they fill out their name, their address, and then this is actually the really super sick part. They see your actual real-time calendar, can book their own spot, and the system's smart enough to account for all the variables and stuff.
That is exactly right.
Okay, I totally nailed that. So do they go to launch27.com?
Yeah, launch27.com.
Okay, launch27.com. Thank you so much, Rohan.
Thank you.
For sharing, being vulnerable with everybody. You've accomplished a lot, but you also had your grapes crushed like we talked about. And we appreciate you telling those stories very much. Okay, Jonathan, tell us about Service Autopilot.
Service Autopilot is a software solution to run the scheduling, routing, managing your to-dos, some amount of marketing, all these different elements of your business. And we cater to companies like yourself. And we operate by 2 basic philosophies on the way we see what we're building, because we're not even close to where we're going. One is, and it comes from my background of having built a number of companies from when they're little bitty all the way up past $10 million. None of us look around and say, man, I'd love to have 9 systems in my company that I want to wire together and make them all talk and hope we can get the data out of all of them. And none of our teams want to live in that world. So while we're not building every feature that our members could possibly ever want, it's absolutely impossible. And while we will partner with other systems and integrate with other systems, we are trying to build a solution that will handle a very significant number of activities throughout your organization. That's one operating principle that makes us very different than the majority of solutions entering the market. Number 2, we operate under the belief that the future is not one of doing your own scheduling, not one of doing your own marketing, not one of remembering to go do things. And while we're not there yet, the future is one of automation. It's one of AI. It's one of all these different activities. So our job over the coming 5 years and more is to deliver to you a solution that does as much as absolutely possible for you, and figures out for you everything we could possibly figure out for you, so that everyone inside your company can move on to bigger and better and more exciting things and grow their careers and do bigger activities. So we are all about automation in terms of where we're going. And I don't want to oversell it in that we're fully arrived. I simply want to tell you where we're going. And that is how I see the world, and that's where we're going, so that's what we're building.
So you remember Skynet from Terminator? Yeah. Is that like what it is? It just does all your business for you? It's like a nice version of Skynet. It's like it's a benevolent Skynet. No, it's powerful. If you don't have a CRM foundation that does all this awesome stuff, you can't scale a business these days. You're going to get crushed and steamrolled, unfortunately. So check out serviceautopilot.com. All right, cool. Well, hey, everybody, thank you from San Diego. Can you guys cheer so it sounds cool on my podcast? Woo! Okay. That was really fun. And I hope you guys all learned and got value out of this. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Hey, thanks for hanging out, friends. And from all of us here at the Quick Talk Podcast team, we hope you loved today's show. We hope that you were inspired to become a doer and not just a listener. Apply what you've heard today in your own business and watch things change for the better. Lastly, remember that all the money in the world can't save your soul. Seek first the kingdom of God, my friends. We'll see you next time.
For more information about the Quick Talk Podcast or Joshua's other businesses, visit our website, quicktalkpodcast.com. Have a blessed day.